We now move into a short session. We'll finish the summit in about 20 minutes' time. But we've covered an awful lot of ground today in this summit. This is the first time that we've had digitization and data as a subject at a CANSO meeting. So this is our first toe in the water here. As I said, we've covered an enormous amount of ground. We've heard from 22, or we will have heard from 22 different speakers during the course of the day. We've had some extraordinarily good insight into some areas. So I just wanted to wrap up with three of our ANSP member CEOs, really, to hear from them. You know, what have you heard? What are your takeaways from today? And in particular, what do you think that means for you and your ANSP when you go home? And we've got three different, very different ANSPs here today. So, on the basis that the CANSO chair is one of these CEOs, I'm going to ask Teri to go first. So Teri, how do you feel about today? What are you taking home to the FAA?
Good. Well, I heard a lot of the same things, just different perspectives, and I think that that's a really good thing. One of the first things that I heard many times, and especially was highlighted in the opening speaker, was just this continued growth in operations over many, many parts of the world, but what that pace of change does. And I think depending on who you are in the value chain, it probably looks a little bit different. So we heard a pilot's perspective first off, and I think we heard themes of that ripple through some of the other speakers that came up here. But one of the takeaways for me was this notion of, just frequency congestion for these pilots that are transiting specifically, especially in this part of the world in Asia Pacific. That has been an area that we have focused on in the FAA. So I think about our Datacom program. We rolled Datacom out to all of our towers over the last year, and we completed that rollout in the terminal environment. We're focused on the en route domain next, and we'll start that rollout later this year. But I think, to really make a safety impact, you think about frequency congestion, hear back, read back, there's real benefits. And I think the takeaway in that particular area is what technology advances are needed for this rapid growth in operations. I heard another consistent theme about working together and collaboration. I think that Gilbert really, highlighted a great example of working together in the African community and the opportunities around creating seamless airspace. Certainly, Africa is seeing an increase in air traffic, and this, if they can get ahead of it through a seamless airspace plan, I think that's only going to provide great things into the future. This notion of, there's so much data available, and I think that there's also a danger with that because you can make it say anything you want it to say depending on what you pull and where you highlight. So, one of the things that Graham talked about, which I think, really resonated with me, is there's going to be so much opportunity there is with interpreting data. But because there's so many opportunities facing certainly ANSPs, I think about new entrants that are coming into the operation, and specifically, things around digital towers, remote tower services, depending on what you call it. If we take that data, who's actually doing the analysis on the data? And if we're asking people to interpret, how are they doing that? And are we asking them to lean forward and think differently? I would ask the question, are they capable of thinking differently? And is it going to get us where we need to be? We're certainly pushing forward on remote towers. I think it's long overdue. The capability is there. But we're asking our workforce to participate in that as well. And are they really capable of thinking differently at the pace we need them to? So I think there's a lot to think about in that particular area. And so those were the key themes I saw.
Okay. Turn next to Klaus-Dieter. You're a large ANSP in a very different environment to Teri in a regulated Europe, and you're an ex-regulator yourself. What are you taking away from today?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I think it was a morning and an afternoon of a lot of inspiration, do you hear me? Is that?
You could use the hand mic, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Now it's better. Yeah, I hear myself better even. I think it was a morning and an afternoon which we have received a lot of inspirations, and I would like to thank first all the outstanding panelists for their how they tackled this important issue from very various perspectives, as Teri already said, because it's also important that we hear and that we are touching the various perspectives which are important for this subject. I think when we are talking about digitization, then we are also talking about virtualization, interoperability, automation, modernization of CNS, but we are also talking about cybersecurity. We are talking about human factors, and we are talking about the necessary support of the regulators. We have heard about the predicted growth, significant growth we have to expect, and it becomes obvious that each of us need a strategy for digitization in order to match these kind of predicted growth. So there's a real important challenge for us which we have to match, and we have in this respect also to fulfill the requirements set by our regulators traditionally, the requirements for safety first, but also for capacity and for cost efficiency. And we also already see in Central Europe the capacity issues coming out of the growth which we already see. We have heard that it's not only about, or that we are already collecting a lot of data, but the issue is to analyze the relevant data. So we have to sort out the relevant data from the non-relevant data, and then to analyze the relevant data in the right manner. And what Martin says, this is a task, it's not la polar, it's this work should be done in order to enhance our performance, so in particular safety, performance, efficiency, and other parts of our performance. To share data requires our willingness to do so, to team up with others. That requires trusted relationships, which are sometimes not so easy to get, particularly in our industry. Sometimes we are, we have a sort of a tradition even in silo thinking. So we have to open this thinking in order to team up with others. We have also to solve privacy issues and, as I already said, the ability to team up and to create maybe even joint ventures or partnerships, things like that. We have already existing collaborative decision-making processes, and we have to deepen these processes. And I think we have spoken a lot about the airlines as our customers. But from my point of view, we are driving more and more in the, how should I say, in a system that says we have one value chain in aviation industry. And this one valuation chain is provided by three partners, the airports, the airlines, and the NSPs. And so they are system partners that are not in a relationship of customers because they have to tackle all the problems together, which requires also a lot of trust, because otherwise, I think we will fail in order to stem this predicted growth. And we also see with UTM that we have here something that requires a completely new thinking without any traditional legacy issues with used procedures, with used model of thinkings, with everything which is historical. So we start here from zero, and I think we should also adopt some of these ideas in our, I say, old-fashioned ATM system in order to be successful for the future, because otherwise I think we are really jeopardized with our business model as NSPs, and maybe we get all even replaced by somebody, by some who is much more efficient with a new, completely new approach of doing and guaranteeing separation. The question I have is also, how can it help? First, I would say
Can we come back to that
Okay.
in a moment? That'll be the last part of the question. Now I want to turn to Captain Ted, who I am extremely grateful to, because he has he's somebody else that stepped in at the last minute. The moral of this story is, if you see me approaching you at lunchtime, run in the other direction. I particularly picked on Ted because coming from Papua New Guinea, again, a very different environment, a different ANSP. Ted's a pilot, and so I'd really be interested in your views, Ted, on what your takeaways are from this, and how is that going to influence you when you get home?
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff, and thank you for all the panel speakers early on today. I picked up a lot of good ideas from what was said this morning. As a small ANSP in the middle of the Pacific, we've got our challenges, and data issues, cybersecurity issues, data sharing issues among the top up there. So as an ANSP, PNG Air Services Limited has embarked on a modernization program, a holistic modernization program, for the last 3 to 4 years. We are 85% completed. We just did the live cutover of our new ATM system, the Thales Top Sky system, and we're extremely proud of the transition there. But one of the things we've realized is that the ATM system has capabilities that can only be maximized if we have proper inflow of data. Part of the modernization program has included modernizing our communication, navigation, surveillance infrastructure, both ground-based and satellite-based. So a lot of the comms links are IP-based, so to carry data as well as voice. So the data issue is a major challenge for us. I think the comments about cybersecurity issues have been mentioned. I think CANSO has done a lot of good work in terms of providing guidelines and things like that so far, but more needs to be done. There's, especially to help smaller NSPs, I think more workshops in that regard. Data sharing among members of CANSO, it takes two to tango. So we're knocking on doors. Some are resistant, so CANSO can do a little bit more in that regard as well. We work closely with Air Services Australia as strategic partners, so and we're working with Indonesia as well. So I think our main challenge is the security aspect, cyber security aspect of the
Great.
data.
Okay, thank you all. I'm going to come back in the reverse order now. My basic question here is, at the end of all of this, so what? What do we need to do as an industry that's different, and how can CANSO play a role in that? and again, are we capable of actually influencing the future on this, or are we going to allow market forces to apply with other players coming in with a much better handle on data management systems and so on? So again, I'd just like to each of you briefly to give me a view on what you would like to see us as the industry doing about this whole data subject, and if you have any suggestions on what CANSO itself could do in this area. Ted. So.
Okay. Well, I'll just reinforce what I just said. I think there's a lot of data out there, but the access and the availability of this data is, you got to knock on people's door to allow access. So I think as members, especially this group, I think we should be more working collaboratively to not just in terms of sharing data, but in terms of addressing the cybersecurity issues to do with data. CANSO, as I said, is doing its bit, but maybe we need to expand or broaden that a bit in terms of policy guidelines and more workshops and things like that as well.
Okay, so I'm hearing more discussions, facilitating partnerships, and perhaps, I hate to use these words, but something like a data protocol, understanding between everybody that can help on that. Yes. But again, we have cybersecurity and data privacy issues looming large on all of that. Klaus, from your point of view.
Yeah, by its members and associate members, I'm convinced that we have a huge knowledge inside CANSO, and so we have also the ability to master these challenges. And I think we have already seen how productive CANSO can be with the Cadena project, for example, which was moderated by CANSO in South America, but also here in Southeast Asia, we see that the talks of air traffic flow management and CDM projects. So I think this can continue also in other regions. And I think CANSO is an excellent platform to exchange views, by these kind of conferences, but also by working groups or workshops to be organized by CANSO. Because again, as I am saying, I'm convinced that we all together have enough knowledge. We all only have to master the challenge to bring it down to earth, and to use it. And this is, as we all know, sometimes something different, having the knowledge, but using the knowledge. But I'm convinced and very optimistic that we all have together a lot of reason to look confident in our future.
Great, thank you for that. And Teri, the final word.
Yeah, well, I think there's currently a wealth of information that already exists in the CANSO repositories. We know that, and I think that there's still a lot of that is unmined for many members of CANSO, and I think there's a great opportunity to learn more for your organizations by taking advantage of what already exists. The other is the continued theme on collaboration. Depending on where you are in the chain, whether you're an ANSP, you're a supplier, you're an airline, who's your customer? And everyone is working towards providing better service for whoever their customer is. I think we do have to continue to work together. Certainly for ANSPs, different ANSPs are at a different point in their evolution. And we have to continue to help each other to strengthen the provision of service, the level of safety, and it really does become incumbent upon all of us to help our neighbors.
Fantastic, thank you. Please join me in thanking Teri, Klaus, and Ted. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that brings us up to the end of this summit meeting. I'd just like to make a few closing remarks. As always, a thank you to many people. I think you will understand that the people that have appeared on stage today did a lot of preparatory work for this summit. So thank you to them, whether they were speakers, panelists, or moderators. Thank you again to the Aerotie staff for supporting this event in such a strong way, and for Aerotie as a whole for their support. And of course, thank you to the CANSO team for the hopefully invisible work that they do behind the scene. I think they're the air traffic management of CANSO behind the scene here. So thank you to everybody. Please join me in applauding. And of course, thank you to all of our sponsors who in their different ways make this happen, enable us to eat well, drink good coffee, and have wonderful networking breaks. We're going to go into the coffee break now. After that, we sort of break into much more of an informal session, which is actually in the room where coffee is served, where various members of the CANSO community, mainly CANSO staff, will be available to you to talk about anything you wish to know on what CANSO is actually doing today on data, whether that's safety data, operational data, performance data, or whatever. So that's it's just a very, very relaxed way of you touching base with the CANSO team and finding out a little bit more about what we're doing in this area. This is a new development that we're trying, so please help us to give it a go to see if that sort of informal discussion after the summit is something that is worthwhile and we should continue doing. So thank you all, and thank you in advance to Aerotie for a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow in the full member, associate member meetings and the AGM. Thank you.